Hello.
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 Hi there.
Hello and welcome to another RadioTimes.com podcast. It's only 2 weeks since we did our last Game of Thrones podcast, but it felt like this episode 3, needed to seriously be talked about. I'm Paul Jones. I'm here with Hugh Fullerton. Hi, Hugh.
Hello, Paul.
And yeah, we're going to talk about the appropriately titled Long Night, which is 118 minutes of Game of Thrones goodness, and you couldn't really see anything. So
I wasn't too bad, actually. I watched it at night with the curtains drawn and with most of the lights off, and I didn't have too much trouble. Although I have seen some articles saying that part of the problem is that it's to do with there's a lot more variation in TV quality now, and the sort of TVs that it looks really good on tend to be the very expensive ones.
Right.
Which also were the sort of ones they would have been editing it on.
Yeah, fair enough. It's the same issue with sound, isn't there? Like everyone's got different speakers on there. Anyway, look, that wasn't where this was supposed to go, really. I just turned the brightness up and it was fine.
I mean, now's the time to acquaint yourself with your TV's various settings. Although maybe the future episode won't be as dark. Who knows?
Yeah, but it had to be dark, didn't it?
It was a night.
It was a night. It was a dark, atmospheric, scary battle. I think it worked. What did you think of the episode overall?
I thought it was really good. I was kind of watching it just constantly on the edge of my seat, filled with suspense.
Exactly.
About what was going to happen. I know that some people have sort of criticised the denouement, but I think it actually works quite well, as we'll talk about it a bit later. No, I was really excited by it and sort of horrified. I do think it isn't my favourite battle scene, as maybe if I sit on it a bit, it will be my favourite battle episode rather. And I would say with the darkness thing, there have been a couple of episodes with battles set at night before where I don't remember it being as difficult to see.
Although I do first or second episode, can't remember, first episode, where they're around not Castle Black, the castle on the last hearth. Yeah, I could see nothing in most of that. So yeah. This seemed fine to me. But it was just massively atmospheric, wasn't it? And there was for me, it was just like from the moment, like you say, from the start, I was gripped, and there was just moment after moment after moment, really either like big action sort of moment or just really cool stuff. Like Melisandre arrives, she does the thing with the flame. She lights up the Dothraki. Arax, right? I was going to say scythe, but fair enough. There's just like a moment after moment like that. There's some really cool stuff with the dragons we were talking about earlier, and I just thought from start to finish, I was gripped. Absolutely loved it. And it wasn't. There were some expected things and some things that I could sort of see coming, but enjoyed seeing coming. But then there was a lot of stuff we didn't expect, I think.
No, definitely not.
Do you have any favourite moments?
We mentioned this just now, but I really liked the dragon battling in the sky, which is interesting because not many people, I haven't really seen anyone talking about it on social media or in reviews and stuff, really. But that was a highlight for me, was just seeing, rival dragons clash in the air and rip at each other and smash into each other.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I've wanted to see that for so long, because obviously the only dragons we've had have previously to this been on the same team. But I saw a couple of people saying it was like there's this Targaryen civil war in the history books of Westeros called the Dance of Dragons.
Yeah, I know.
I know. Just for the listeners.
I don't know.
And yeah, there's all these descriptions in the books of these sort of cool dragon fights, and it was actually quite fun to see one.
So you've wanted to see that?
I think so. Yeah,
for all this time.
Yeah,
right?
And I kind of love that Jon can just casually ride a dragon now, and everyone's just sort of that's fine.
Yeah, no, it took him he's it's Targaryen, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I know, but no one else questions it. They're like, that checks out.
Yeah.
No, I really liked that. I liked how Theon went out, although in hindsight, maybe Bran could have, told him he didn't need to. But maybe he did need to, maybe he needed to put the Night King in that. It feels like
Bran's seen the whole thing. I mean, do we think that Bran has seen all this happening and knows exactly how it's going to play out?
Well, I'm not sure, because he said he can't see the future. He can see everything that's happened, everything that's happening now. So maybe he was able to make a sort of educated guess, sort of run the simulations or whatever. Alternatively, maybe he was just like illegally torrenting the episode a couple of hours beforehand to see how it went down.
Do you think is that one of the things you can do as a warg?
What, with torrent? I mean, probably.
Like sort of future torrent, like ahead of
Yeah,
I don't know.
I saw someone saying
I guess that's what you do. I guess what it is, right? Seeing into the future is like future torrenting.
It is, in a way. I saw a couple of people wondering what Bran was actually doing when he was warging most of the episode. He just sort of...
that's a good question.
He sort of flies into some birds and goes and checks out where the Night King is, and then that's about it.
Yeah, no, so is he just... those crows just flying around for the rest of the...
Yeah, but it wasn't like he was doing recon and letting people know where things were. He was just sitting there.
Well, no, but maybe he was doing something, and maybe we'll find out what it was. I mean, maybe it was significant.
We should also maybe talk about... I've mentioned Theon, but should we just do a little roll call of the dead characters?
I have a list here of ones that I remembered, and then you'll probably add 10 to them that I
probably won't. Not that many people did.
So I've got down, who did we lose? Ser Jorah, Sam's mate, whose name I can't remember.
Ed.
It's not a difficult one, that, is it? Beric Dondarrion, now his name I know.
It's a good name, to be fair.
Lady Mormont, what's her first name?
Lyanna.
I thought it was Lyanna, but then I was like, no, that's Jon's mum.
It's named after her.
So, yeah, right, okay, there you go. Also, and I guess she's Ser Jorah's cousin as well, so the family...
Yes. Mormonts are out.
Family lost a lot there, yeah. I suppose only about 5 people live on that island, don't they?
62, and every man of Bear Island fights like 10 mainlanders.
So, 620 is still not massive, is it? Theon, the Night King, the White Walkers.
True.
That's all I've got.
I think that's pretty much everyone.
Army of the Undead.
Viserion properly.
Yeah.
Also, the random Dothraki dude who you see in the background sometimes, he's gone. I wrote a little, on our live blog, I did a little in memoriam for him, which I was kind of He's been here since season 6, he's never gotten a name as far as I know. I mean, he probably does have a name, he's called like Quono or something. But yeah, I think that was everyone. So we had, Ed, Lyanna, Beric. Beric's been on borrowed time for a while.
Yeah. So he's been resurrected 12 times or something.
Yeah, I mean, the real surprise was in who didn't die, which was Grey Worm, and everyone thought Grey Worm was going to die because he was discussing his retirement plans in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And then he didn't. And I read an interview with Jacob Anderson where he sort of said that was, I think it was an intentional thing. It was a bit of a playing with expectations that the showrunners did.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, and he was he thought he was going to die as well when he was doing the, we should go and live on a beach thing.
Yeah. But I enjoyed seeing, it was a good reminder of what an amazing fighter Grey Worm is. He was just kicking ass, wasn't he? Like,
it reminded me of we had Jacob Anderson at the Radio Times Festival, and he was showing one of his favourite scenes, which was him in I think it was in Marine doing some like cool spear spinning stuff.
Yeah,
and he got to do quite a lot of that in this episode as well.
Exactly,
so nice.
I remember that scene because there was him, Ser Jorah, maybe Baratheon. What's his name?
It wasn't. I know what you mean, but it wasn't Barristan. It was
Barristan,
original Dario.
Right.
Before he was recast.
Yeah. That was a cool scene where they were all like, anyway, that was a long time ago. But also I think one of the things, despite what everyone says about Game of Thrones, anyone could die at any moment. I mean, this really, more and more, it's clear that they can't. There's a lot of people in a lot of trouble there who you just didn't really think were going to die.
We did a list on the website of, the top 9 people who would die, and we got most of them right, I think. I don't think we got Jorah. I think I sort of thought he hadn't quite done enough to die yet, but we had most of the others who did die. But we had a lot of people who didn't die.
Yeah, no, I mean, we what I'm saying is we can work it out, and you saw some of the situations they found themselves in and they weren't dead.
It's funny that the only people left standing at the end, there was a small proportion of the army that they assembled left, but most of them are named characters.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So in the first wave of the fight, all the characters we know are standing right at the front. And none of them die really. And then so how long did Tormund, Jaime, Brienne, Sam spend standing against that wall, just hacking at things,
for
a really long time?
I mean, at the end, you just see Sam's just made himself a big sofa out of dead people. He's just sort of chilling out. I mean, he did well.
Yeah,
it's funny that I saw some people saying that Dothraki Blood Riders wiped out in the thousands, but Sam managed to stick through to the end.
I know he's not a fighter, but I was a bit annoyed with how he basically got Ed killed.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty classic. It's kind of what happens to him in I think the beginning of season 3 or the end of season 2 or something, when the White Walkers first attack. He kind of messes up and doesn't get the ravens off and is found crying on the floor. So it was almost like a little callback to that, I think. But I was sad to see Ed go. I wasn't entirely surprised. I thought he was pretty likely to go.
Same.
We should say there's a few characters who it's a little unclear whether they survived or not, but we can tell from, if you look carefully at the episode and from the next time trailer, Tormund is still alive.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
Ghost is alive, Ghost of the Direwolf, despite going off with the Dothraki and Jorah at the start. He just ran off to chase squirrels or something.
Yeah, I was like, I was saying when I was watching it, what is Ghost actually going to do in this fight? Because basically, unless you can like rip a dead person's head off, you can't really kill it. You haven't, unless he's got like they've given him Valerian steel teeth or something.
That'd be awesome.
That would be cool. Why have I just thought of that?
Just put a spike on his head or something. I think he can rip heads off though. He's pretty big and he's pretty strong. But they probably should have held him back for when they're fighting. But people.
Then is it my imagination? Because since they said we can't really have him in it because it's too expensive to make a wolf that big, he just seems like normal wolf size now. He seems like he's got smaller.
He was always supposed to be kind of the runt of the litter. There's a Grey Wind, which was Rob's one, was massive even in season 3 before he got killed. I don't know. They've been a bit funny with his size. In the books, I think he does get bigger. I think they've sort of used the excuse that he was supposed to be a bit stunted compared to other direwolves, which means he's just a massive normal wolf. Yeah. We should also say other people who Gendry survives. You see him in the next time.
Oh right, brilliant.
And Pod, who I really thought was going to die.
I'm really glad about that.
Yeah, Melisandre's still alive. Varys and all that lot.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and we should. Did you have more to add to the list? Sorry,
I think that's everyone who you thought who you weren't sure about.
I was just going to say that at least a couple of them got good deaths, didn't they? And got redemption, because I can't imagine. Well, I can imagine one or two things, but can't imagine much that Jorah would rather see on it as his dying kind of wish than Daenerys crying over him.
Yeah, he went out, protecting her from enemies. I thought it was almost kind of appropriate that his very cool moment back in season 1 is when this Dothraki guy tries to stop Daenerys saving Khal Drogo, which in hindsight probably was a good idea, and he just says like no further horse lord and fights him off. And I thought it was quite appropriate that this time a lot of the whites attacking them were Dothraki,
right?
Because they were the ones who'd just been risen, so it was kind of a full circle thing. And yeah, obviously, but he went down swinging. But I kind of like they didn't really have any final words or anything.
No, it was like that was. Really, I thought it was really powerful. He tried to speak, and you were thinking, "Oh God, don't say I love you" or whatever. And he just was too wounded, and then he just died. And I thought that was actually really powerful. I quite liked that.
Yeah, Lyanna, his kinswoman, went out pretty well too.
Yes, I saw taking out the giant with
the little dragon
with the spike through the eye. That's brilliant.
I saw an interview with Bella Ramsey where she asked how she should approach it. How scared should I be, or should I be pushing through the fear? And the director said, "Imagine you've had your fear gland removed."
She sort of has, though, hasn't she?
Yeah, it's fun as well. I saw someone speculating afterwards. There was a theory a while ago that Tormund was really Lyanna's father, because Tormund makes this joke in an earlier season about how he had sex with a bear. It's kind of like a running joke. And obviously the Sigil of House Mormont is a bear, and there's a bit of a running thing, more so in the books, that Lyanna's mother, Mage or Maega Mormont, is called the she-bear and is quite like big and strong and tough. So there's a kind of little...
And Tormund definitely likes those kind of women.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of a fan theory that on his many expeditions over the wall, which he says he's done, Tormund hooked up with Lyanna's mum, and then maybe her killing a giant, as he claims to have done, was a little nod to that. Or maybe it was a coincidence. I don't know.
Wouldn't she be like bigger and have fiery hair?
Well, maybe. I mean,
who knows about the genetics of that?
The genetics in Game of Thrones are, blonde people are very, non-recessive, and that's about it, I think.
Yeah, true. The other person who had a redemptive death was Theon, and I mean, I was proud of him at the end. He fought it really, really hard.
He did well. It's fun as well, because there's a bit in season 1. I'm doing a lot of this. There's a bit in season 1 when he saves Bran from wildlings by shooting one with his bow and arrow. So I kind of liked him back in a forest fighting off enemies with a bow and arrow. Also, there's this bit right at the start of season 1 when they're all talking about the fact that the Lannisters have, tried to kill Bran or whatever. And Theon's like, "Oh, I'm ready. I'll fight them anywhere." And then the guy says, "What, is there going to be a war in the Godswood?" And that is where he ended up. And I think that's kind of appropriate.
Yeah, and he got that final, Bran saying to him, "You're a good man, Theon," and that was kind of like, that's what he needed before he died, basically.
It's funny because a lot of people say, there weren't big character deaths, but Theon and Jorah have literally been in it since day dot. They've been in since episode 1, I think, both of them. And it's just that I think they were becoming less central to the storyline. If you think about Theon, it's kind of like his storyline, now that the storylines are less about individual characters and more about characters joining together, it was a little less clear how he would fit in.
Also, though, I think if you were writing a story arc for those two characters, those big, like those redemptions, they're perfect. They are perfect endings for them.
I know, and it's funny. I think it's because people expected them. They were sort of like, I think people wanted some surprise death, but I don't think that would have been that satisfying anyway if it was for characters we hadn't spent enough time.
Well, they did have a surprise death.
True.
Link. I got a double link here. Yeah, they did have a surprise death, and talking about things coming full circle in the Godswood.
Yep. The Night King is dead.
And but also he was born in the Godswood. He was made by the Children of the Forest there.
Different Godswood, but
different Godswood, a Godswood. That's all I've got really. But I thought it was quite cool. Well, I mean, you're obviously unimpressed.
No, I'm not. I'm very impressed. There's another thing as well where I watched the inside the episode behind the scenes thing they do afterwards, and apparently there's this bit in the last series. This is the showrunner said, where Sam's talking about Dragonglass and how it works and all that, and he says offhand, the Targaryens used to just decorate their weapons with Dragonglass. They didn't even think about it. And there's a picture of that dagger that Arya uses in the book while he's talking about that. And the showrunners basically suggested that as much as you think it might just be because it's Valyrian steel or whatever, that maybe a bit of that weapon has some dragonglass in it that might be a bit of the same bit that was used to create him in the first place.
Right.
And fate brought it all back together.
And could only be the only way to kill him, potentially.
Yeah, and she stabbed him right where they pushed the dragonglass in the first place. As apparently, I didn't really notice that. I thought she stabbed him in the gut, but actually she stabbed him.
I thought it was more in the heart where he got the dragonglass.
No, that's what it is. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It's right where it was put in the first place. So it was kind of a bit lucky.
But then like that's not luck, is it? That's the fulfillment of destiny and a prophecy.
Totally.
And then, why are we bothering them? Because this is all going to come out the way it was supposed to. This is kind of seems to be what's going on with Bran.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of Beric having to have survived all that time to help Arya. Kind of. I mean, the Hound was helping too.
Yeah,
and he didn't have to get brought back from the dead, except maybe that one time. It's interesting. I mean, I can see why people were a little like put out that Arya got the kill instead of Jon, because we've sort of had almost I'm not saying that I agree with them, but I can kind of see it because they'd sort of teased this clash between Jon and Night King for a while. But I thought about it, and actually I think it would have been rubbish if the Night King got his sword out and had a sword fight with Jon.
Yeah,
it would just rob him of all mystique,
and it would have been really predictable and boring just if it had gone down in that way, if Jon had killed him. I thought it was great though the way they teased it, because basically they had Jon trying to fight his way to the Godswood, and you kept thinking, he's going to burst in and kind of like and kind of kill him, and then they turned on his head. Arya turns up as brilliant, and she's been building to that for ages in the way that she's changed and developed as a person. She basically was utilising her assassin skills that she spent like a whole season or two seasons learning in the House of Black and White. And I believe there's quite a bit of foreshadowing has been done about her that this happening and her having that knife and so on kind of in previous seasons as well. Is that true?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the things they mention in the episode where Melisandre says you're going to close a lot of eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, is something she says to her in season 3. And I mean, to be honest, at the time, it was, also normal people have blue eyes. So,
yeah.
I really wanted to go back through and just check if Arya had ever killed anyone with blue eyes before this point. But I couldn't really be bothered. So I just left it.
I thought that was a bit like, it's a bit like what your mum says to you or your auntie when you're little. She says, you're going to break a lot of hearts when you're older.
Oh, you're going to murder a lot of people.
Brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes.
So there's that. And then there's, like you say, the bit where Bran gives her the dagger. In the Godswood, which is where she uses it.
Yeah.
And also it's the dagger that was used to sort of set off the series in a way, in that it was used to try and kill Bran, and that ended up, starting off the War of the Five Kings, more or less. And in the end, it's the dagger that saves Bran and stops something far worse happening.
And isn't there also a quote at some point about her pointing out that it isn't just brothers, it was the Targaryen brothers, it was also the sister who...
Yeah. Who conquered it.
Sort of, yeah.
There's when Aegon the Conqueror, took over Westeros. There's a bit where Arya and Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, were chatting about that, and basically she says everyone always talks about Aegon, but we don't talk about Rhaenys and Visenya, who are the two sisters who ride the other two dragons. And Visenya wielded a Valyrian steel sword too, called Dark Sister. And now people are saying that's a little bit of foreshadowing for like everyone thought it was about Jon, who is also called Aegon Targaryen, but actually his Dark Sister is the one who, kind of played a crucial part. I mean, maybe that I think that dagger may have been a Targaryen weapon at some point, so it could be that Svay maybe even is Dark Sister. I mean, we were always told it was a sword and it was lost a long time ago, but maybe it was that instead, or maybe it was reforged. Maybe it's the same steel reforged into a new weapon, over the years. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's also even just the move she uses, the little dagger flip. It's actually quite interesting because I'm doing it again, but way back in season 1, there's a bit where.
Well, no, I think this shows though that they've been planting together. These clues and or remembering these things that that have happened.
So when she's fighting Syrio Forel in season 1, they're doing their sparring. Her swords master.
Yeah.
There's a bit where he uses this move and has a sword at her neck, and he pushes down her sword, and it's sort of quite a fun moment. And then people noticed last series in 2017, Brienne kind of does the same thing to her, that Arya has a move to answer it, which is to flip the dagger to the other hand. And then
fight is absolutely brilliant. In Winterfell, they're sort of sparring, but it's close to being real, and that is a brilliant move. You're right.
And then that's the same move she uses here.
Yeah.
Is that she switches the dagger between hands. So it's almost like a little evolution between those two sparring matches that were to practice for this one crucial moment. So it kind of, you can kind of read a lot into it as well. They said,
fun though, isn't it?
It is fun, yeah. I mean, they
could
said
all be complete rubbish, but
they've said they've known they wanted Arya to kill the Night King for about 3 years, or at least when they were doing the interviews, which could have been a little while ago. So which probably rates it around when they were making, season 6, or when season 6 was out, and they were starting to make season 7.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm sure George R. R. Martin probably had that in mind in some way. The author of the books, which this is adapted from. I don't know why I say this stuff, because people who listen to this do know that, but I
think they know. Yeah,
I just like to be complete.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why this is going to go on for 10 hours.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so Arya just kills the Night King, and it was a real surprise, because I think I kind of assumed, like everyone else, that they'd lose and it would be a big retreat, and then the rest of the series would be about the rematch. But it's
sort of it means that we've had half a series leading up to the battle and the death of the Night King, and now we've got half a series that presumably will be about the other fight. But before we go to that, can I say a couple of things?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing we didn't talk about in deaths is one thing this cemented for me this episode is that I know my favourite character now, and it's Drogon. When Viserion, zombie Viserion, and Rhaegal, is it?
Yeah.
Were fighting, and Rhaegal was kind of getting a bit hammered. I mean, I knew that Drogon was going to dive out of the sky and grab him, but it was still really cool when it happened. And then I also was the most scared when the undead started climbing on Drogon and sort of weighing down his wings and stuff, and I thought he was a goner. I thought he was going to die, and that was the worst moment for me.
Yeah.
So I now know who I love.
Also, he had that great moment at the end when Daenerys is crying over Jorah, and he just sort of lands
put his arm around her,
wraps around her.
So yeah, beautiful.
I mean, he's known Jorah for years. Jorah was there when he was hatched, so he might have some sort of
he does.
Connection with him as well.
He's a pretty emotional guy, Drogon. I think
he is. I think
I only worked out today that he's named after Drogo.
Yeah, and the other one's named after Rhaegar.
Yeah, I know. I feel really stupid. But what I was going to say before we start talking about what might happen in the rest of the series, which we won't do for very long, we should talk about the Crypts, because the other sister, everyone predicted it basically. The Night King gets closer to Winterfell, he raises the dead, and they start crawling out of the walls of the Crypt. It was a stupid place to put the women and children, wasn't it? When you've got a man who raises the dead, a place full of the dead.
It's funny as well, because everyone sort of predicted it and talked about it, made jokes about it. It was a much smaller part of the episode than I thought it would be. It happens, but it's not presented as oh, that was stupid. It's sort of oh, this is happening.
Wow, never thought of that, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Also, it's really bad, but I was live blogging this, and it was presumably quite a popular transmission on Now TV, because our transmission cut out just at the point that the Night King started raising people. So I actually missed the fact that he rose these people from the Stark Crypt, and I missed the bit where Ed and Lyanna and all that lot come back for a moment as whites. So I missed about 3 minutes. So then I came back and there were already people being attacked in the crypts. I didn't realise that they'd definitely risen. I thought maybe they had, but then when nobody mentioned it again, I was like, well, maybe they just broke in,
Yeah. That's a good job. Sorry, go on.
I rewatched it last night and I was like, oh, okay. Because I was sort of complaining afterwards. I was like, oh, it sucks that they didn't bring back any of the characters who died as Whites. That would have been great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you recognise any of those bones? Were they anyone we knew?
Well, I was wondering, there's one who looked like he was a maester, which the thing is, all the bones should have been Starks, because only Starks are buried there. I think officially it just has to be the Kings of Winter / Kings of the North and the Lords of Winterfell who are buried down there only. And Ned Stark kind of made an exception for Lyanna, like he insisted. But it's supposed to be only Stark, so I don't think it could have been a maester, but maybe he was just mummified in a weird way.
And is Ned down there? I don't know if
Ned is down there.
Is his head down there as well?
I'm not sure about the head. They got the bones back. The bones weren't mummified. The bones were properly picked clean before they were sent back. So
it would have been a full skeleton.
Yeah, and I may possibly still minus the head. So I'm not sure whether he would have reanimated.
I don't think we saw. I think he would have really tried hard not to, wouldn't he?
I think Ned would have, tried to stay dead.
Yeah. Or like Ned does reanimate, but he's so Ned.
He's so honourable.
He fights off the other. I mean, I should be writing this.
You should. I mean, basically, Ned tells everyone in the crypt that they plan to murder them all, and he gives them a good chance to leave first. Yeah. And he goes, "No, it's only honourable."
So, yeah, he's a good sport. I thought it was good that when Sansa and Tyrion immediately hid behind something while all the children were being murdered.
Yeah, good
cool. But they had a nice little touching moment, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I thought she was gonna, kill herself with the dragon glass.
Oh, did she?
Well, when she gets it out, I thought that was kind of, maybe there was a hint of like.
I never thought that. I thought that they were going to try and find their way through. But
turns out they didn't need to.
I thought it was kind of like, it was almost like but it was sort of like a Butch Sundance and the
True.
And the what's the other one?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance
and the Cassidy Kid. There you go. It was like that because I thought it was just going to go right. It was almost like they were going to get their weapons out, sort of knowing they were going to die, and there was going to be slow motion. They're going to run around, and that was that. That was the but no, they just got out. She said that he was. She basically paid him the ultimate compliment. Said that he was better than Joffrey and Ramsay.
It's like, high praise indeed.
Thank you. So anything else you want to discuss about that before we briefly talk about what might happen from here on in?
I don't think so. I mean, there were just so many cool moments. Like if you watch, there's a 40-minute behind the episode thing on YouTube where they sort of lay out how they did everything, and it does remind you all those great sequences, like Arya in the library, which was really scary. Her hiding.
Arya in the library with the small dagger.
Yeah, true. And just Jon trying to fight his way through, and like all these whites crashing from the ceiling and all that. And just the sort of sheer horror moment of poor Grey Worm having to leave all his all his troops outside the gates. Yeah. Oh, and
that did happen then, did it? I was sort of thought we were trying to work out, are they in front of the barricade or behind it?
I think they were in front and behind. Presumably some of them survive. Also, Melisandre's cool moments with the flames and then lighting the trench.
I was about to say, I don't think we mentioned her as dying,
That's
did we?
True, yeah. It's sort of, I keep forgetting that she died in it because it was right at the end.
This is like literally the last scene, isn't it?
Yeah, she just walks out. I thought that was quite beautiful, and also possibly an indication that the last time we saw her take off her necklace was at the beginning of season 6, and people have suggested maybe she was trying to end it then because she thought, well, I failed, but the Lord of Light wouldn't let her yet. So that's why she doesn't die when she takes
that's the thing, isn't it? It's like we know she's got prophecies wrong before and tried to do things that didn't work out. But like it felt like she knew all along what was going to happen here. Yeah,
it's weird. Maybe the Lord of Light spoke to her in the flames while she was on holiday.
Yeah,
maybe.
And like that necklace is lying around there now.
Do you saw Davos eyeing it up? It'll be next week. It's like Davos, your hair's looking very lustrous.
Yeah.
You don't look a day over 30.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
No need for fermented crab for him. But anyway, we should talk a bit about what it means.
Yeah, so basically we've got what appears to be, I guess, a 2-part series now. We've had the first part, which is the battle with the dead, and now the dead are dead.
Yep.
And then we've seen the trailer for the next episode, and it kind of looks like, well, as you would expect, they're going towards King's Landing.
Yeah.
The Golden Company and Cersei and Euron Greyjoy versus everyone else, I guess. One question is, who are they trying to put on the Iron Throne at this stage? Because Jon's got a claim now, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't feel like Jon would have ever thought past this moment.
No.
Because he's been so focused since at least season 5, maybe earlier, on the Night King, Army of the Dead, all that. And sort of his deal with Dany was great in hypothetical, but now he's sort of facing it. It's like, oh, actually we won. Well, damn, now I've got to go and march my people south for this fight, which I kept on saying doesn't matter. All of a sudden, all the things he said weren't important have become very important. And yeah, he's going to be a bit have mixed feelings about it, and Sansa's definitely going to. And also there's the fact that, you know, from Daenerys' perspective, she lost a huge, you know, proportion of her army. She lost all the Dothraki, apart from like 3 dudes who ran away. And it looked like she lost most of the Unsullied, although you see some seem to have survived. And then God knows how many Northmen are left, or Knights of the Vale. I mean, to be fair, there should be about 18,000 more Knights of the Vale. That I don't think they ever left the Vale. I think they only sent about 2,000.
Right.
But I think we'll just pretend that hasn't happened. That's what the show normally does.
So she could be. I mean, have they even got an army big enough to take on?
Exactly. I mean, they still have 2 dragons, which helps.
Yeah.
So that I mean, Aegon Targaryen, the original, had 3 dragons and a very small army. He had a much smaller army than anyone else. I think he only had a couple of thousand men or something. But obviously the dragons made a difference. But I mean, Cersei has the anti-dragon machine, as it was described on Sky Atlantic. It's a big crossbow. I love the idea of an anti-dragon machine. They just sort of turn the crank and they just go away.
They disappear.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's interesting. And I was saying earlier, I think that I was surprised when Night King died. I thought they were going to lose and they were going to retreat. But now that he's dead, I'm sort of thinking about it. It sort of makes sense, because a critique of this final season before it even came on by people was that Game of Thrones had always been about the morally grey, the sort of murky area in between right and wrong, and that this big clash between good and evil didn't really seem appropriate for the end. And now we discovered that that's true, and you know, we were slightly fooled into thinking that was going to be the case, because we've seen people unite together against a common enemy, and now it maybe is going to be about how they splinter apart again.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I've always thought that might be the case, because I think George R.R. Martin, you know, assuming they take his general ethos through this, doesn't have a great opinion of people and humanity kind of thing, and I sort of thought, you know, they'll get together, and if they do win, they'll then go back to their same warring ways between each other. It won't have changed them at all, and they won't have learned anything. Hopefully that's not true, but
well, I mean, the famous inspiration for the series is the end of Lord of the Rings, when Aragorn's a good king, and George R. R. Martin was like, just because he's a good man doesn't necessarily mean he'd be a good king. You know, what's Aragorn's tax policy is the quote. And I kind of wonder if this is a bit of that. You know, they've defeated Sauron essentially, and now it's kind of like.
So do you think we're just going to basically get into the administration of
it'll just be like
the kingdom now?
Which is why Sansa would be a good person to have on side, because she actually thinks about crops.
So yeah, maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe it'd be like, oh well, we thought that the Night King wouldn't die till the end. Oh well, now he has died. Maybe we thought that the next 3 episodes would be the battle for King's Landing. Maybe the first episode they'll just beat Cersei. The next 2 episodes will just be like, well, how are we going to deal with tax, and what's what's our policy on farmland and stuff.
Should we send on a diplomatic mission to Dawn? Or we don't want to snub the Martells, or if there's any that's still alive. It's interesting. I think when I watched the next time trailer for episode 4, and Daenerys is like, we've beaten the dead, hooray, now let's go and fight Cersei, I was a bit like, oh really? Like, as in,
have a rest at least.
Give us a break. And I feel like that's sort of the point, is that, again, like I said, in the abstract, it must have felt like perfectly reasonable to say, we'll go and fight for Dany. And Dany's obviously going to expect that, especially now that she's given up so much of her army. You know, she's sacrificed a lot for Jon's cause. It's kind of like hard to think that they'll want to march south. I mean,
it'd be stupid at this stage. Well,
they could just hang out at the north.
They need to just chill for a bit.
Yeah, they just really hang out and
recuperate.
Yeah, we don't know how much of a time jump there's going to be.
There's now plenty of food at Winterfell because most people are dead.
True.
So you know,
I mean, the main issue is going to be burying or burning people.
Yeah. What was I about to say? I've forgotten.
That's all right. We should say. Yes.
Oh no! Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say other things that we kind of want to look forward to. A potential this allows for Clegane Bowl.
Sure.
No, I was just going to make the point that what we thought was them letting us off with a load of people that we thought fewer people dying than we expected is because they're now going to die in this war. They're going to die maybe one-on-one in battles and things like that.
They've thinned the herd a little bit. Yeah. But there's opportunities definitely. And maybe we'll end up being surprised at who does survive. You know, maybe Pod will be the last one standing. Who knows?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that. No.
And there's also is Bronn going to do what Cersei's asked and kill the Lannister brothers?
Yeah, I'd sort of forgotten about that.
I mean, that would be really out of character, I think. But he does like money.
I feel like
stuff.
Bronn has to. survive to fight for Tyrion again in some way. But again, that would be satisfying. So maybe that's they'd want to counter my expectation. No, I'm really interested to see how this all pans out. I said before, I didn't really have an impression of how the series would work after episode 3, and now that they've sort of shown their hand, I kind of feel like I get it a little bit more. But then maybe it's going to pull the rug out again, like you say.
Yeah, well,
maybe.
Hopefully.
Like in my head,
That's
it's sort
the
of
beauty of it, isn't it?
Episode 4 is kind of an aftermath and arguing episode. Episode 5 is another big battle, and episode 6 is the aftermath to end all aftermaths. And that's what I think. But then I thought wrong before, so who knows? And maybe the Night King's not dead. Maybe Bran's the Night King after all. And people were right all along. I hope not. And will the wildlings want to come south and fight now that they've defeated the Night King? They only agreed to do that. They might want to go back north of the wall. It's nice now. There's no dead people anymore.
Yeah, true. But it's cleaner north of the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cleaner. They've got a lot of
no piles of rotting bodies.
Because there used to be like hundreds of thousands of wildlings. Now there's about 7.
And what the Night King's done for them really is he's basically cleared out all the dead bodies.
Yeah, handy. Move them all to Winterfell.
To Winterfell, yeah.
Just fly tipping. That's all it is.
Yeah, basically. Right, shall we end it there?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of episodes to talk about, so I'm sure we've missed bits.
I keep remembering moments that I really liked.
Yeah,
we can't go on forever, but shall I say them anyway?
List them.
Okay, here's one that I really liked. I just thought it was a brilliant device, even though I don't think it quite makes sense. Is when they first sent that she lights all the Dothraki's Arrax up, and they ride off to fight the dead, and then you just see those little lights going out one at a time, and that's really, really good.
Especially it's such a triumphant moment as well when they charge off.
Yeah,
and the music's like woo, yeah,
completely.
Team.
And it's like, but you can sort of see. I think I thought that might be how they did it visually, but I wouldn't have thought of it until that moment. It was brilliant, and I did like the Night King kind of being the Terminator, just like coming out of the flames, surviving the flames of the dragon. Kind of thing. And
side note, I think people should have known that he would survive, because there's a bit in the last series where he walks through Dragonfire and it goes out. So I think there was an indication that it wouldn't hurt him. And Bran was like, "Oh, who knows? Haven't tried it before." And I was like, "Yeah, it happened.
You have tried it. It doesn't work."
I'd like to also, as my little last moment to talk about, like to point out the bit at the end when just before Arya kills the Night King, when he walks incredibly slowly towards Bran. Well, it's a very, very nice piece of music by the composer Ramin Djawadi, I believe is his name. Might be pronouncing that wrong. The composer does a very nice piece of music as he sort of very slowly approaches Bran. And I saw a lot of people complaining about how if a Night King had just walked a bit faster, he would have won. But it's perfectly in character, because he spent the first 6 seasons just aimlessly wandering at an incredibly slow pace down to the wall. And also, I found it quite funny because the music sounded very like something from Westworld, which the same guy composes. And I was just, I couldn't get out of my head that it sounded like Westworld. So I enjoyed the little crossover. I
actually enjoyed getting up. I thought, if we get close to the Night King, it's going to spoil it all. He's a guy he's so enigmatic, and he's someone you see from the distance. Is this going to spoil it? But I kind of liked seeing just the minute expressions on his face and stuff.
He almost smiles, doesn't he? After the
a couple of times. Yeah, I thought that was actually worked. So I thought it was quite cool. So it was nice to meet him.
Nice
properly.
To know him, albeit briefly. Yeah.
R.I.P. Night King.
R.I.P. Night King, the character death that we're all very sad about. Rest in pieces.
Very nice, very nice. We'll end it on that brilliant pun, shall we?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.